Hello everyone, I am DnD Doge, and welcome to the first video on this channel. Today I'm going to tell you a tale of a man's first ever D&D campaign gone wrong. Unbalanced homebrews, overpowered characters, and an asshole DM await you in this real D&D horror story. By Reddit user Throwaway Might. With that introduction out of the way, let's get right into the story. Okay, this happened a few years ago, but I'm just now getting around to putting my experience out there for the internet to enjoy. Names will obviously be changed because that's how things are done in these parts. The characters are as follows. Me, an orc artificer. DM, a longtime friend who I've fallen out with for a lot of reasons, this game being one of them. Warlock, a friend of 8 years and the Mary Sue. Eldritch Knight, another friend of 8 years and a guy who got shafted just about as hard as I did. Hunter, DM's wife and the beneficiary of many unearned graces. Cleric, wouldn't you guess it, another friend of 8 years. A side note, the 3 players I knew for 8 years, I met all at once at a local game shop, and they were basically a package deal. So our adventure begins when DM asked me if I would be interested in playing in a homebrew campaign, which I was more than up for as it had been a while since I was able to join any tabletop RPG. DM explained that we would only be able to play as one of 4 custom races: human, elf, orc, and dwarf. These wouldn't be the normal variety of said races though. Each one had its own twist, minus humans, who were basically the same as the player's handbook. The orcs were now fungus people, the elves were hermaphrodite space people, and dwarves were Russian werebears. Session 0 comes, and we are all informed that we will all be receiving magic items that will grow in power with us. Cleric gets a tablet with vast amounts of info that he can access for lore, spells, and other things. Eldritch Knight got a sentient sword. Hunter got a pet baby dragon, and I got a suit of mechanical Iron Man style armor, and Warlock got a magic ring. Now these magic items were the start of the problems. Some were completely underwhelming, while others were completely game-breaking. Both Warlock and Hunter were the ones blessed with overpowered items. While Hunter literally had a pet dragon, it started out as a baby but was quickly growing and had all the stats lifted from the monster's manual. It was the Warlock's ring that was the worst offender. This ring could store up to 30 spells on it that the Warlock would cast for free and could recharge the ring during a short rest. Holy crap, yeah, I would say that is a bit overpowered. Jesus. He literally stocked it with 30 castings of Fireball once and dealt with an entire combat encounter by himself. 30 castings of Fireball. Yeah, no wonder he was able to do an entire combat encounter by himself. Man, what was this DM thinking, man? I'm new to D&D myself. I've only been playing for like the past year, and even I know that's insane. Damn. Meanwhile, the cleric's tablet was an interesting idea, but he had to spend time in game unlocking random info that may or may not be useful. This was at the expense of in-game rest times, but the Warlock could recharge the ring of 30 spells with a short rest. Knight Sword could teach him combat maneuvers if he beat it in sparring matches. Problem is, it was massively overpowered and would one-shot the knight every time. Well, that seems kinda useless. My armor was based off Elvish tech, which was super rare and expensive. I could unlock new abilities for the armor if I had the proper tech and ridiculous amount of gold for basically useless upgrades. Like once per day 1-minute spider climb at half movement speed for 25,000 gold and 20 pieces of tech? Now, needless to say, my character was based around his ability to understand and use Elvish tech. So much so that he spent 200 years mentoring under an elf engineer and inventor for the express purpose of coming back to his people and leading them out of the Stone Age and into a respectable future. His backstory is that he was the frail but intelligent son of an orc chieftain who was exiled by his tribe for using an elvish weapon in ritual combat. His tusks, which are a sign of honor and status, were ripped out, and He later replaced them with obviously metal tusks as big as fuck you. That's a way to phrase things. He was then taken in by the elf I mentioned earlier and began his training. This, however, did not seem to hold any sway over the DM's treatment of my character. This was the DM's first time running a campaign, so I was very forgiving, but years later his DMing hasn't improved. Our party was promised to all have importance and weight to the overall story we would be playing. Starting off meeting in a tavern and a basic combat encounter was our first session, and our DM dropped hints that something strange was happening with my character's old clan. We all left the session happy with how things turned out. The next few sessions, however, became tedious combat encounters with no real storytelling to speak of. Combat was taking forever, and I had started to see an issue with my character. See, in this setting, elves had developed advanced technology, and my orc artificer character had spent the better part of 200 years studying and learning all he could about this tech. It was how all of his class abilities worked, but this tech was hard to find, so there were very hard additional limitations placed on my character. It was bad enough that most of the sessions I had nothing I could do. I brought this up to the DM, who became defensive. He said it was because I, quote, didn't know how to play the class, unquote, but later admitted that I was right when most of the other players pointed out the issue. Eventually the party moved back to doing plot-relevant things like killing my war-crazed brother and defending Knight's family castle from an orc onslaught. All still combat-focused, but still was better than fighting bandits and wolves. I also missed a session where the party fought a werewolf and young dragon. Cleric purchased a bag of holding and used it to store the dragon body. Also, unbeknownst to me at the time, the rest of the party, except for the warlock, got infected by lycanthropy. Then we finally get to a big goal for my character, the Silver Tower. This was a falling sky fortress of elven technology that was said to be a treasure trove of lost technology and knowledge. My character has trained most of his life to find and explore this place and take something back from it. Before I go on, I had a special ability called Tech, which I was supposed to be able to use for hacking, building, diagnostic checks, knowledge about elven tech, etc. We come up to a large hollow door, and I think, yes, finally my turn to be useful and do non-combat things. I'll see if I can bypass the security and get us inside. I ask the DM if I can do anything like that. No. With no explanation. Just no. When I ask why not, he ignores me and tells the elf cleric that he feels the tower draw him to it, and has him solve a vague puzzle to open the door. Once inside, we came upon automations. I tried to do anything with them and was met with the same hard no. I spent an entire session being shot down anytime I tried to do anything. I brought the issues up with the DM again at the end of the session, and he once again became defensive and said I was upset that I hadn't been in the spotlight. I told him that it wasn't about the spotlight, but rather I couldn't do anything, and we left this location without my character getting to do a single thing or learn anything new. Nothing. DM maintained shitty attitude and shut down any conversation. The next session after this, DM suddenly dropped our characters in Curse of Strahd. Out of nowhere, no refactoring of anything. Eagle-eye readers will notice that this means no elven tech, which means my character abilities are basically useless. This is where the Mary Sue shows himself. Over the next couple sessions, it is revealed that our warlock is an immortal werewolf god who has full control over all other werewolves. He could fully control his overpowered transformation and still use magic with his ring. Literally, the warlock became the only plot focus and basically unstoppable. I mean, he wasn't unstoppable before with a ring with 30 spell slots in it that recharges with a short rest. I got sick of being useless and told DM I wasn't having fun, only being a walking gun with no access to any of my abilities, while I could just zone out for all the RP parts because Warlock was the only important character. He literally made a local lord bow down to him by saying, "Fuck you, I'm a god," and transforming. I was set to trade out my artificer for a monk by having him get picked up by an ally with a flying ship, and then introduce my new character the session after. The time comes and my character is saying his goodbyes. Quote, "I would like to say this adventure was fun, but we all know it wasn't. I'll be glad to be around people who don't smell of wet fur and depression." Unquote. My character was verbally a dick, but I always tried to make sure he did little acts of kindness for the party to show the two sides of his character. He boards the ship, and as he was taking off, he was about to drop off his personal stash of gold, potions, and items that the party could use before taking off, when the warlock shot down the ship with a single lightning bolt. My artificer survives the attack and fall damage, only for a warlock to get another surprise round and fireball me to death. PvP was originally not something the DM allowed and aggressively disavowed. Warlock and DM laughed extensively about not only killing off this character, but also the character I had planned to introduce. Unbeknownst to me, my new character was on board the ship and died upon impact. He never gave any explanation as to why my monk was on the ship, or why he allowed the PvP only against my character other than, quote, "We didn't like the character of yours because he was mean to everyone," unquote. He was role-playing a character. I may sound sensitive, but it upset me to have my character, who I genuinely enjoyed and cared about, be treated in such a way, and when I told the DM and his warlock this, they just made fun of me. After this, I decided to no longer play D&D with this group. And when DM asked me what new character I was going to make, I told him that I had no interest in playing with him. He took that personally and hurled personal insults. At this point, I had enough and told him off, and that if he ever spoke to me that way again, I wouldn't hesitate to smack the teeth out of his mouth. I left and didn't speak to DM for a few years. To this day, both Warlock and DM maintain that they don't see how anything they did was wrong, and I doubt they ever will. There were other things that happened in this campaign, and maybe I'll share some of those later on. But this is already too long as is. Now, I would say that you need to be careful when RPing a character that is an all-around asshole, as some players might start to take it personally. In which case, communication with the DM and other players is key. I would say that this is a failure in communication all around, as he did bring up his concerns with his DM, only to be shot down. That and the fact that the DM basically made his character useless while overpowering the other characters. I mean, even I know that ring with 30 spell slots that can be recharged upon a short rest is game-breaking as hell, and I'm still a fairly new player to D&D. Though I can see why OP wouldn't stick around for that group, especially after he tried to retire his character to bring in a new one, and the DM bending the rules to allow another character to not only kill his current character, but the one he was bringing in. Being new to D&D, I bet that character took him some time to create, and to have the DM never even allow him to play it was just an overkillingly dickhead move. This just goes back to the old saying that no D&D is better than... Though I am glad to report that OP has since found a new group to play with, and is enjoying. It sucks to think that a new player could have a bad experience with their first game that puts a sour taste in their mouth, and they never give it another go. Anyways, what did you guys think about this story? What have you done differently in this situation? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Also consider subscribing and clicking that bell icon to be notified whenever I put out a new video. Anyways, I am DnD Doge, I hope you roll all crits, and I will catch you guys later.